The attic smelled of old wood and forgotten summers. Emily Harper had never been up here before. Not since Grandma Rose passed away last winter. Dust floated like tiny golden specks in the warm afternoon, light streaming through the single small window. Boxes were stacked high, each one holding fragments of a life Emily thought she knew. She was only looking for a quilt her grandmother had promised her when she stumbled upon it, a small, faded blue envelope tied with a silk ribbon. Her heart gave a strange little flutter. The ink on the front was smudged but still legible. To James, with all my love, 1964. Emily sat cross-legged on the creaky wooden floor, her hands trembling as she untied the ribbon. Inside was a letter written in graceful, looping handwriting. The words on the first line made her breath hitch. If you're reading this, then I never got to say goodbye. Her pulse quickened. Who was James? Why had this letter been hidden for nearly 60 years? She didn't know yet, but one thing was certain. She had to find out. Emily didn't read the whole letter at once. She was afraid that if she rushed, the mystery might vanish like smoke. Instead, she carefully placed it back into the envelope, tucked it into her bag, and climbed down from the attic. Downstairs, the old Harper farmhouse felt eerily quiet. The grandfather clock ticked in the corner, its chime echoing through the empty kitchen. Emily made herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma grounding her back to reality. She unfolded the letter again. James, it began, I never wanted you to leave, but I know you had to. If fate is kind, maybe we will meet again under the willow tree. The one where you first told me you loved me. If I'm not there, please remember you were my only home. A lump formed in Emily's throat. She had never heard her grandmother talk about James. Grandpa Frank had been her only love. Or so she thought. The mention of the willow tree caught her attention. She knew exactly where it was, the old park near Willow Creek. Still standing after all these years? Something inside her whispered, go there, today. The afternoon sun was dipping lower when Emily pulled up to Willow Creek Park. The air was warm but carried the faint scent of water from the nearby stream. Children's laughter drifted from the playground, but Emily's eyes were fixed on a single spot. The old willow tree near the edge of the creek. Its branches swept down like green curtains, swaying gently in the breeze. She approached slowly, her footsteps crunching over the gravel path. As she got closer, she noticed something odd, a small brass plaque at the base of the tree, weathered but still readable. In memory of James Whitaker, 1940 to 1965, beloved son, friend and soldier. Emily's breath caught. James was dead? The date was only a year after the letter was written. She knelt down, running her fingers over the engraving. Beneath the plaque, fresh wildflowers lay in a simple bouquet. Someone had been here recently. She turned, scanning the park. That's when she saw him, an elderly man on a bench, watching her quietly. His eyes were pale blue, and something about them made her heart skip. Emily hesitated for a moment before walking toward the bench. The elderly man sat with his hands folded over a wooden cane, his posture straight despite his age. When she approached, he gave a polite nod. Beautiful tree, isn't it? He said, his voice deep but gentle. Emily glanced back at the willow. It is. I didn't know there was a memorial here. The man's gaze softened. Not many do. James was special. He paused, as if weighing his words. Did you know him? Emily shook her head. No, but I found a letter. A letter to James. Dated 1964. It was in my grandmother's attic. For a moment, the man didn't move. His grip on the cane tightened. Your grandmother's name? Rose Harper, Emily replied. The man inhaled sharply, his eyes glistening. I knew Rose, he said quietly. And if you found that letter, then there's something you need to hear. Something I should have told someone a long time ago. The man's gaze drifted toward the willow tree, as if the branches themselves held the memories. My name is Henry Cole, he began slowly. Back in 1964, I was James Whitaker's best friend. We grew up together right here in Willow Creek, fishing in the summers, skating on the frozen pond in winters. James was the kind of man people trusted instantly, and Rose Harper was the kind of woman who could light up a whole room. Emily felt a tremor in her chest at the sound of her grandmother's name. James met Rose at the county fair, Henry continued, his eyes far away now. He told me that the first time he saw her, she was laughing at something a little girl had said. He swore right then that he'd marry her someday, and for a while, it seemed like he would. Henry's voice softened. But the war came, Vietnam. James was drafted. In '65, he wrote to her every week, letters full of hope and dreams, and then, one day the letter stopped. Henry looked down at his hands, his voice barely above a whisper. That last letter you found, it was the one she wrote before he left. He never got it. Henry's voice grew heavier, as though each word carried the weight of decades. James never came back from Vietnam, he said quietly. The official letter said he was killed in action during a rescue mission. But I know more than what was written. Emily leaned in, her hands clasped together. Henry's eyes clouded. He died saving his unit. They were ambushed in the jungle. James volunteered to draw enemy fire so the others could escape. He didn't stand a chance, but he bought them time. That's who he was. Emily felt tears sting her eyes. Rose waited for him for months, Henry went on. But when the army told her the news, she locked that last letter away. She married your grandfather years later, but part of her heart stayed under this willow tree. Henry's gaze shifted back to Emily. You finding that letter now? It's like James has finally come home in a way. The late afternoon sun bathed the park in golden light as Emily stood before the willow tree, the letter in her hands. Henry watched from the bench, his expression solemn but warm. Emily knelt at the base of the tree, brushing away a few fallen leaves. With trembling fingers, she placed the envelope beside the plaque. I think this belongs here, she whispered. The breeze picked up, rustling the willow's branches as if the tree itself was acknowledging her gesture. For a moment, Emily swore she could almost feel a presence, calm, grateful, at peace. Henry joined her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You've done something important today. You've given James the goodbye he never got. Emily smiled faintly through her tears. And maybe I've given my grandmother a piece of her heart back, too. They stood there together, the sound of the creek flowing softly nearby. In that quiet moment, Emily knew she would carry this story and their love for the rest of her life. They stood there together, the sound of the creek flowing softly nearby. In that quiet moment, Emily knew she would carry this story and their love for the rest of her life. And if you believe some stories deserve to be remembered forever, subscribe so the next one finds you.